just like seeing her for the first time.
The plane near the forest players were resting local monster hunters, and the main character, Cho Hansen, was walking next to them with a cup of coffee in his hands, but none of them suspected what was happening underground at that time. Windbirds soared into the sky with loud cries. MC stopped and realized that something was happening, and then he felt a slight shaking. He looked down at his mug. The liquid inside was shaking, and the shaking was getting stronger. With each passing second, that's when they realized that Imugi, a huge sea serpent, was approaching them. A monster jumped out from under the ground. The girl ordered the Windblade fighters to prepare for battle, and MC, along with the others, began to wait for the enemy, the oldest monster from Legends. The ground shook even more. Then a menacing roar washered. Imugi was quickly approaching them, and his appearance put a fear debuff on them. A sorceress named Kim Hana stepped forward and ordered them to calm down and prepare to fight back. Then she used her magic and easily dispelled the debuff. All of these hunters are in the Windblade. Only the best of the best are here, and Hanning is also part of this raid. Deciding to put his own strength into the fight, he pulled out a sword, and dark purple sparks danced in his other hand, and he looked at his opponent with confidence. Surprisingly, he is only level 1. He is a belatedly awakened hunter. Discovered his power about a year ago. Realizing that he needed to get closer to the enemy, he pushed off the ground and jumped high into the air, ending up right above the monster's head, and then rushed down like a bullet. And upon collision with the enemy, sparks spread in all directions, and this is only the power of a level 1 player. Butho. Did it come to this? Let's go back in time to the moment of his awakening. He was working at a construction site, and the long-awaited break came. He is years old. Just years ago he was an ordinary student, but then suddenly began as his father was hospitalized due to an incurable disease, mana deficiency. This disease appeared years ago. When the gate to another dimension opened, then the human world turned upside down. People awakened and received magical powers, but the gates to other dimensions were both a blessing and a curse for humanity. Monsters that came from another dimension caused irreversible damage to humanity. Incurable diseases, similar to mana deficiency, appeared, and the awakened players dealt with monsters for which they began to receive huge profits. After all, loot from monsters could be sold at a high price thanks to this. People who were somehow connected with the field of activity of players managed to finally accumulate a fortune, but for him the gate is only a curse. The ingredient 4th inhibitor that can alleviate the symptoms of his father's illness is a rare stone that drops from a monster, and off course one like that can't be cheap. His mother started working 2 jobs. His older sister gave him all the money Shay had saved for the wedding, but even so, it wasn't enough, and after work he had to rush straight to his part-time job. Of course, there wasn't enough money. If only he were awakened, he wouldn't have to do all this anymore. He could destroy rocks with his bare hands, jump over high-rises. It would be nice to become a player when he was done with work. He returned home, and the first thing he did was lie down on his bed. Finally relaxing, he kept thinking that everything would go well if he became a player. They say they earn an unimaginable amount of money, but no one knows how to achieve the awake thing. The power, it's some kind of lottery in which he has no chance. But despite this, he was not upset, and continued to dream about what kind of player he would be. He would not be some ordinary one, but a strong one. If people became players just because they wanted to, then probably everyone would already be them. Pulling himself together, he threw a towel over his shoulder and headed to the bathroom, but he felt something was wrong. Suddenly a light breeze appeared in the room, and a system window appeared in front of him with a message that he had awakened. This put him into a stupor, and his heart began to beat faster. They say that there are people who died of a heart attack because of a sudden lottery win, and it seems that now he understands him. Very nervous, he closed his eyes and opened the status window, hoping that there would be something cool there. But when he opened his eyes, he saw that all his characteristics were rather meager, unlike other players who usually hate points. He grabbed his head in disappointment and said that it was a miracle, of course, that he became a player, but his stats suck. And when he looked down at his skills and found out that his personal skills only included selling and buying, and he had no active or passive skills at all, he started cursing at the whole world out of despair. He fell onto a chair and Sterodento space, then a tear rolled down his cheek, and he thought that even if this is a damned hero, the total number should be more than. After that he calculated the total value of his points. He only had this made him smirk and wonder we had while other players had an average of points, even if he increased his overall level. He wouldn't be given 5 points to distribute among stats. He needs to rise to level 6 to be on par with ordinary level 1 players. He doesn't even have active and passive skills, which are usually given to each if a player has good skills. He will be treated like a king at a party, and getting into the ranks of the best is easy. Usually after awakening players get one of the following classes: tank, damage dealer, healer. Percent of players definitely get at least one of these. But there is also a boost. This is one of the skills that allows beginners to level up faster, but there are other players, for example Kim Hana, who awakened twice. She is one of them in the whole world. There are no more than of them in the Republic of Korea. She is the only one. There are also players who for one reason or another fail to level up, and although they are the owners of power, they are not much different from ordinary people, but even such players had at least some abilities. In all years he had never heard of awakened players who found themselves without skills. He became interested in his personal skill and thoughtfully clicked on it, after which he was transferred to a store where there were various goods of varying quality. He was very surprised by this and began to look at the prices. They were the same points. MC was surprised and thought that this guy was trying so hard to make everything look cheap. He realized Thathus was not the most common currency, and when he saw that he had billion accumulated points, he was very surprised. Realized that these points worked as an in-game currency. He scrolled through the list and noticed something interesting. There was a legendary quality weapon which excited him, the highest quality known to people, is heroic, but here it says legendary. He clicked on the legendary quality item, but in the description there was nothing except one inscription that this is an item that cannot be purchased with a normal level. To be eligible to purchase a rare quality item, he needs more than billion accumulated points. His balance is currently at 0. He was surprised that the points he initially had do not count, and when he noticed a high quality item, his eyes widened. It occurred to him that there might be medicine in the store that could cure his father, and he scrolled through the list quickly, reading the names of the goods. Finally he saw a legendary quality elixir, usually what is called an elixirus, a panacea, but he cannot afford it. Yet he smiled and seemed to understand the meaning of his skill. He needs to take up trading. He lay down on the bed and thought that tanks are the richest of the players, and therefore set this class in the search filter. And when he saw a crystal in the list of goods that allows you to increase strength, this greatly interested him. This is a normal quality crystal that allows you to increase strength by 1 unit. It does not work on players with stats above. He started to think about whether he should buy it or not, and thought that if he didn't buy and abilities he wouldn't be able to become a great player. He needed to think it over carefully. He ended up buying this crystal for almost 1,000,000 points, and while he was looking at it, he wondered if he could eat it. He decided to test it, and as soon as the crystal was inside him, he felt a sharp surge of strength, and all his muscles tensed opened. Then steam started coming out of his body. When he came to his senses, he clenched his hands into fists with smile, and thought that it was only 1 unit of strength, but he felt like he had been working out in the gym for a couple of years. He decided to become a little stronger with the crystals, and went to the store again to put a skill book up for sale, and started thinking about where he could place it. He also set Thepris at almost trillion points, but a system notification popped up and caught him off guard. He needs to specify Thidam. He is selling in the registration window. The commission will be % when buying. He was very upset by this, but Heckle didn't do anything about it, and decided to start over. He bought a crystal to raise his power again, and his time went by. His room began to fill up with various purchases. Time passed. He went to the Players Association, and Degger at the reception asked him what brought him there, to which he told her that his powers had awakened so he could register. She was slightly surprised, and looking at him doubtfully tried to find the words, and then said that he was a little old had his powers really awakened. He didn't understand why she called him old, and she asked if he was mistaken. She had never met anyone who awakened at his age. The oldest person to awaken was years old. He still didn't understand what she was talking about, and when his gaze fell on the mirror next to him, and From this he fell to the floor and stared into space, and the association workers thought that he had dementia and surrounded him wondering if everything was okay with him. He just sullenly looked at his wrinkled hands and realized that there is nothing free in this world. Thinking about it, he decided to open the system window and saw that he had almost 1,000,000 points on his account, which were leaving every second, and with them his years returning home. He calculated how much he approximately had left to live, and this did not make him very happy. He has less than a year and a half to live, and now he needed to somehow earn a living. In the literal sense of the word, he looked at his things and decided to sell some of them, although he doubted that anyone would buy them at all. He took the game console, checked that it worked, and a system window appeared in front of him, warning about the commission. He brought the game console to the system window and then let it go, and which it appeared in the product registration window. He was very happy that he had succeeded, but before setting the price, he rubbed his beard in confusion and thought that in real life, he would have been able to get about for this console. He decided to take a chance and sell it for a higher price, setting the price at almost 1,000,000 points. Although he was nervous, he began to justify his decision by saying that there were a lot of games on this game console, so the price was quite normal. He doubted whether his AD would be posted if the price was too high, but fortunately, his item was successfully put up for sale, and he was so happy that he decided to sell something else. While in another dimension, there was one of his customers. The demoness was flipping through the list of goods looking for something new and interesting. She was bored because the same thing was sold every day. Flapping her wings, she stretched and said that it was because of the competition. Sometimes everyone just plays chicken. That's how a market economy can stay afloat. A notification sound was heard. She looked up and found out that new items were put up for sale. She was very happy about this news and immediately went to the store to buy it all. Meanwhile, Heinz received a notification that his items were sold, and with it, his youth returned. Now he realized that his lifespan depended on his balance, deciding to restore all the lost points. He sold other things and began to wonder who bought all this. Meanwhile, in another dimension in the world of cultivars, there was someone who bought it. The girl was just now looking at the wristwatch she had just bought, and carefully watched how the number changed. Whether she realized that this number current time or not remains a mystery, but she really liked this thing. It was the turn of the smartphone. She turned it on, and a notification about mobile data appeared on the screen. She started to twist her smartphone in different directions with interest, and new notifications about the absence of the network appeared on the screen. But she didn't understand what it meant at all, and frowned because of it having closed all the notifications. She opened the camera and was very surprised because she saw her face on the screen and thought that it was a mirror. Having seen a line with all sorts of multicolored icons, masks, she clicked on it without thinking and fell to the floor in surprise when she saw her reflection. It's just a miracle. In the reflection, she has a hat on her head, although in reality, she doesn't have one. She turned it all off and picked up the smartphone. Looking straight into the camera, having looked at herself, she was slightly embarrassed, and then an idea came to her mind. She picked up the phone and, having made a cute face, started taking a selfie. Meanwhile, in another dimension, the demons was burning with rage. She didn't have time to buy some off the goods that Hinson put out. She started cursing the man who got ahead of her, then looked at her purchases and thought, what did she buy? But what wasn't this? For her eyes flashed. Apparently she tried to see the true essence of these things, but she saw nothing good. Expectedly, for her the game console turned on, and she froze in anticipation, and when she saw that an image appeared on the screen, she was very surprised. At first, she thought it was magic, but there was no trace of it at all. So how is this possible? Time passed, and she was completely carried away by the game console, and sweating, she poked at the buttons with effort, and at one point she froze in place, and her eyes opened wider. There was a message on the screen that the game was over. She looked at it in shock, then screamed in rage, and magic began to thicken around her. She literally went crazy because of losing the game, which was happening for the nth time. Meanwhile, MC was walking around the dump looking for things he could sell. He went to the car and opened the system window, but it told him that couldn't put other people's goods up for sale. He was a little upset by this, and went on seeing a discarded Fannerby. He scanned it with the system, and found out that it could still be sold, which surprised him a little. He took it and thought, is it because it's no one's fan and he picked it up, or is it just the system's decision? After that, he went to the store and from there went home and decided to sell something else, but the system set limits on sales no more. Then pieces at a time, and he thought it was a shame, but still, it was the beginning of his business. A new day came looking at his balance. He got very nervous and called himself a fool now. He only had almost $1 million on his accounts, smiling nervously. He decided to try to do the charging with new force, since he only had days left to live, and at that moment a system notification appeared. He received complaints from a buyer who bought his product. If there are a lot of complaints and the seller's rating dropped significantly, then his activity will be suspended, so let him be careful. Such news made him nervous. He didn't even know that such a thing existed here, but now the main problem is definitely not this, so he decided to lower the price a little for now, and the system reported that the changes were successful, and then all his products were sold at one moment. He smiled nervously, and taking out of the bag Waith bought in the store, said that he thought no one would buy it. He was really surprised. He decided to sell something else, but the system again reported a buyer's complaint, and he got even more nervous. It turns out that out of purchased products have already received a complaint. Percent of the products were defective, so his activity is suspended for days. Let him solve this problem within a week. Otherwise, his goods will be considered invalid, and himself will be blocked for months. He was indignant and began to check complaints. They were unhappy with the smartphone, because it was only enough for hours of active use. There was also a complaint about a wristwatch that was charged by the sun. He read all this in confusion, and said that all these things were working, it was just that the batteries were dead. He checked other complaints too, about cigarettes, a lighter soju, and beer. Apparently the inhabitants of another dimension became so dependent on these products that they could not stand it any longer. And therefore began to send complaints to the seller. With insults and requests to put up new goods, complaints came every second. He did not even have time to read them. At one point he could not stand it, and exclaimed with displeasure, "Do they think that everyone has a title in speed reading? Let them. Give him at least a little time." He remembered what the system told him, and took a notebook starting to write everything down from today. His activity is suspended 4 days, so he needs to sort out the complaints within a week, otherwise he will be banned for months to begin. He will need to put the old phone up for sale again, but this time with a charger. It seems that the clients are the same as him, players with unique abilities. It seems that those who bought electronic items are not from Earth or maybe they are aliens with poorly developed technologies. After realizing what was going on, he got excited and opened a second-hand website to buy some items at low prices, but he didn't have enough money. After seeing the notification, he jumped up from his chair and felt his pockets. There were only a few coins inside. He sat down on his bed in frustration and started thinking about what to do. Maybe he should sell the skill book, and he still can register as a player because he's gotten old. An idea came to his mind, and he took out his phones and started searching for something. After a while, he was already sitting on a chair and nervously waiting for news. After hearing the sound of notifications from his phone, he immediately checked it, and taking his jacket, went about his business. When he arrived at work, all eyes were focused only on him, especially on his muscles. Heckled easily lift heavy bags and carry them on his shoulders, and his colleagues noticed that he was really strong and asked where he had worked before. He answered them with a smile that he worked a little bit everywhere. 3 days passed like this. He bought new goods for resale, and the system informed him that he would be unbanned. In seconds, looking at this notification, he smiled and took the things out of the box, and as soon as the ban was lifted, he decided to immediately put them up for sale. But what was his surprise and indignation when he received another complaint. Notifications continued to come, which is why he broke out in a cold sweat and began to get very nervous. A few seconds later, the system informed him that a complaint had been received for out of goods. Percent of the goods were defective. His activity was suspended for days. He was given days to resolve this problem, otherwise all his goods would be considered invalid, and the seller would be blocked for months. He was very surprised by this news, and began to get indignant, because he did not understand what was wrong. He decided to read the complaints. This time there was a dimness on the list of angry buyers. Apparently she was playing games all the time, and the console ran out of battery. So she got really mad and sent this complaint with a bunch of insults and threats. He sighed, heavily realizing his mistake, and then he didn't think about the batteries. All of his products received complaints that didn't describe a specific problem, but only threats and demands. To put something new up for sale, he got really mad and exclaimed, "Why are they being rude to him? Right away, let them wait a little." He was already ready to upload new products. He leaned back in his chair tiredly, and thought that he had gotten a day ban again. If he didn't sort out these problems in days, he would be banned. Gritting his teeth, he cursed loudly and then went back to the construction site where everyone praised him for the extra work. Days later he received his payment for the work and also bought several new products. Sitting down on the chair, he looked at the system window with confusion and thought that the person who was buying up all his trash just to throw him in the ban would definitely buy this too. These batteries would work for game consoles too, but the question was how long they would last. Finally he was unbanned, and immediately started posting items for sale, and the system reported that all his ads had been posted. A few seconds later, new notifications appeared. Complaints about his items were resolved, which he couldn't help but be happy about. Now he had about 2 billion points in his account. He smiled broadly, and then clenched his fist in joy, and exclaimed that this is the power of money. What should he sell next? A game console or an old phone? He had an idea. He had become younger. He could now register with the association. To get a player's ID, you need to go through a week training at the training center. You can return to the training as many times as you like, until you manage to pass the exam. If you have already displayed and failed the exam, then it is not a problem. You will simply be without a certificate, which means you will not be considered a player, so awakening is only the beginning of becoming a player. Tests included theory and practice, and in the latter, Hinson really stood out. The instructor clapped his hands, rejoicing at his success, and one of the students said that he was so proud of his abilities. But isn't he taking on too much? Then a girl from his group stood up for the MC, and exclaimed with displeasure, "Who does he think he is, acting like this because he has some rare skill?" The guy responded by telling her that it was true, and Hansen smiled dryly, saying that he had been showing off like this from the beginning. Weeks passed, the training was over, and the Muk went out into the street with his group. He was called out by a girl who stood up for him, and offered him to go with them and celebrate the end of training. Even the guy who didn't like him offered him to join, but he refused, citing household chores, and left thinking that they would never meet again anyway. They were a little upset that he wouldn't go with them because he had good abilities. The next day, he went to the association, and a smiling girl asked him to provide his documents, and when the registration was over, he proudly looked at his player ID. He remembered the skill book, and thought that now he would finally be able to sell it. Maybe he would even be able to pay all his father's bills through hunting. The first thing he did was go Toothhorned Rabbit Dungeon and rented equipment. They're paying a pretty penny. The man in the store smiled and told him to come again, but if he was late with the return, he would be obliged to pay extra, and so impoverished. Hinson got upset, and answered him that he understood everything, after which he tried on the equipment, and thought that all his savings were enough only for the cheapest armor and a sword. If the equipment is weak, then he will not even be able to enter the dungeon, and even for staying there he has to pay. He went out to the main square. Players were looking for tanks and healers for their team, luring them with rather tempting offers such as paying for the rent of the dungeon and a guarantee of safety. Looking around, MC thought with delight that even in low-level dungeons there is a high demand for tanks and healers. He paid attention to the sign with information about the dungeon the optimal player level is from. Told how he understood that the chances of dying here are not great, it is still worth playing it safe. Opening the system window, he checked his stats. His strength, endurance, and agility were all at, and his intelligence and magic were at no. His active skills were strength, fireball, and 5 others. His passive skills were body enhancement and furthers. He smiled and thought that, with his current skills, he could join any team, but he wouldn't. Today's goal was to catch the boss. Alone, he pretended to have already obtained all the skills from the skill mastery books. He had Dedoward, the dungeon, and the man at the entrance asked if he had a partner. He told him that he would go alone, and Renento, the dungeon, thinking that he must think he was just some idiot trying to clear the dungeon alone. Even higher-ranking players rarely go alone. Monster hunting is usually a group activity after all. Reality is different from the game. One mistake can take your life or ruin it forever. That's why it's important to find a partner. You can rally on if something happens. One of the dungeon guards approached the man who let him in and asked if he would let him go alone. He told him that sometimes people need to be allowed to knock their arrogance down themselves, and in the meantime Hansen froze at the entrance to the dungeon, collecting his thoughts. Taking a step, he found himself on the other side, in a huge torch-lit cave. He didn't even have time to look around, as a loud sound came from the side near us, a group of hunters who were trying to get close to a horned rabbit. This monster immediately instilled fear in him, and he thought that it was not a rabbit but some kind of predator. Looking at the horns and sharp teeth of this monster, he decided not to engage in battle, and first look, and at that moment one of the players used the provocation skill, and the rabbit immediately pounced on him. They were waiting for this. The tank held the monster back with his shield. After a few seconds he realized that the enemy was much stronger than him, and did not hold the shield. Hyanseng, who was watching them, was surprised, and one of the players rushed to attack, and upon noticing the monster's paw above him, he quickly stepped back and stabbed it into its body, causing the rabbit to fall dead. Hansung noted that they had been fighting it longer than he expected. They had spent minutes on one rabbit. Everyone needed to deal with the monsters faster. In about minutes, he noticed two men resting nearby. They were security personnel from the Players Association. They looked like they were just going about their business, and he wondered if they would really care if a group of players were wiped out. He opened his status window and thought that this would be enough for a solo player, then went invisible and went further into the dungeon. Soon a group of players appeared in the cave. Two of them said that they did a good job, and their group leader and Su guild member Li Sui agreed with them. Kim Ji Su, also from the guild, enthusiastically suggested that she go further, saying thought it would definitely appear soon. Sui hoped for it, and another team member said that they should catch it alive. Atalkos's friend agreed with him, and Zushu just smiled in response, and Sui wished them good luck. The guy told her not to worry. They would definitely have enough strength. And then she turned to them and asked, did anyone doubt it? The problem is that the monster does not come out. Realizing that she was upset, he immediately apologized to her, and Jezu told her friend not to worry. They would show up in a few days, and she reminded her that days had already passed. She couldn't believe that the fourth requirement was a horned rabbit. Scratched her head in confusion and said that the monster wasn't that difficult, but they still hadn't managed to complete the quest. It seemed to just hide in this dungeon. Already starting to lose her patience, she got angry and swore that she would kill this rabbit in a second, just let it show up, after which she suggested her friend to move on, but before that they used the stealth skill. Meanwhile, MC was nearby. He was practicing hunting rabbits. The girls passed by several monsters, and Ji asked if she heard any sounds. She told her that it was probably the commander of the third team, and the youngest of second. But before she could speak, a guy appeared in front. It was Hansen. Suhi told the girl not to pay attention, but she was already too interested in him, and said with delight that it seemed like he came here alone, or maybe he lost his partner. Her friend remained silent and looked at the guy more closely. Noticing that he didn't have a scratch on him, she told her that it was unlikely, plus he used the stealth skill. But still, Jisoo was curious why he was alone, and the girl said that she didn't know. She noticed something, and her eyes immediately widened. She saw the logo on his armor, and realized that he was wearing rented equipment. Apparently he was a newbie. The girls were upset, began to wonder why he came here, and were sure that a newbie would not have come here alone. Maybe he came Alanido, fight monsters on a bet. In the meantime, he took out his sword and headed towards the rabbit, and one of the girls said that even with a bunch of useful skills, you need to be above level to kill a monster of this type in one blow. But to their surprise, he easily dealt with the rabbit, and they both lost the power of speech. Sighing heavily, Helen on his sword, and felt a slight tremor in his body. He felt sorry for this rabbit, and he mentally apologized to it for killing it. But he is also in a hopeless situation. He must adapt for the sake of his family. After waiting a few scans, he again noticed that nothing dropped from the rabbit, but he was not upset, and again used the stealth skill to deal with the rest of the monsters, delivering a lightning strike to the rabbit from behind. He quickly finished it off, and waited for the loot to drop, but nothing happened. Then he went invisible again, and Ji Su, watching him, doubted, and asked her friend, "Isn't he a newbie?" Not waiting for an answer, she called out to her, but she still to remain silent and watch this guy. There is a low rule If the player's level is lower than the monsters, then the latter will drop items and the player will receive experience, but experience and items cannot be obtained from a monster that is levels lower than the player. The magic contained in corpses turns into valuable times. But alas, the higher the player's level, the worse the dropped items will be, and of course, when the difference of levels is reached, there will be no loot at all. When MC once again dealt with the monsters, Sui noticed how Hishins were shaking, and said with a grin that this was this guy's first hunt. Jisoo asked what she thought his class was say, smiled and told her that she wasn't sure, and suggested that she'll watch him for a little while longer. After all, she had nothing to do at home anyway at this time. Hanning entered the fight again. He wounded the rabbit, and then pierced its body with a lightning strike. Finally, what he had been waiting for so long happened. A blue crystal fell out of Therabit. It turns out that he had already collected 5 of them, including this one, but he felt uneasy about how to focus. It was for him to level up even if he hunts solo, given how many he had killed. This should have been an auto raise at least to level 2, but it seemed to him that his experience points were not growing at all. He decided to continue, and even thought that within the next hour, he would completely clear this dungeon. Hours passed. He killed a lot of rabbits and checked the status window again. His level still had not increased. This made him think that the usual level increases in a day or two. Then an idea came to him. He continued to destroy the poor rabbit sand. The girls were nearby all this time and watched his failures. Completely disappointed, he sat down on the ground and thought that this was the end. Over the past days, he earned million points for selling electronics and points here for selling the body of one of the monsters. He scratched the back of his head in confusion and told himself to think positively. This was just the beginning. At that moment, a rabbit snuck up on him from behind, but he quit it, and with just one swing of his sword, finished it off. The hunt continued. The rest of the rabbits began to gather around him and the monster's corpse, and he, preparing for battle, swung his sword several times, cutting off their heads. When he slowed down for a second, the rabbit pounced on him from behind and let out a menacing roar, and without even turning around, quickly dealt with it. After that, a system window appeared congratulating him on his new achievement. He single-handedly killed high-ranking horned rabbits and received the common ranking title, O Horned Rabbit Hunter. In order to understand this better, he walked over to the wall and opened the system window, went to the title section, and thought that he had seen something like this on the internet before. When you get special achievements, your stats go up. Panyan can get this achievement. The only problem is that usually everyone levels up long before killing rabbits. This is pretty good. He can grow to a rare rank. While he was thinking about this, Suhi was watching him, and for some reason laughed. She found him interesting. He killed the horned rabbit with one blow. If he did it once or twice, she would have called it luck, but no such luck. He immediately cut off the heads of those monsters with one swing of his sword. Deciding to intervene, she headed towards Hyacinth, who was just now spreading through the crystals in his bag, and called out to him. He was very surprised that there were players here besides. Hyman immediately noticed their high-level equipment and thought, who are these girls? Noticing his doubts, Ju smiled and told him not to worry. They were from the security service, and then he asked what was the matter. He thought that all the employees were staying at the entrance, but for some reason they were wandering around here. He didn't notice them, and they didn't have employee badges. Jisoo hesitantly told him that they had just returned from a mission to protect the gate. He probably didn't notice them because of their concealment skill. They used it to avoid the attention of the horned rabbits. He doubted her words and noticed that he couldn't even hear them. Breathing what kind of concealment was that? Jisoo smiled and said that she accidentally noticed him hunting. His outstanding ability attracted their attention, and now she was wondering what his level was. He became nervous and thought that his level was still 1. But his stats totaled it was no good that they noticed him. He decided to remain silent, and so he said that they wanted to pass by, but she was curious about something. When she said that she was from the Sue Guild, he was surprised, and she continued, there is a big company in Korea that everyone knows about. Sue Group, their guild. Sue is sponsored by this company. If he reveals his abilities, then she will gladly help him join their guild. He kept silent and thought that things were bad. He should be more careful with these ladies, because there is a punishment base, of which he will not be able to level up in the future. The first level player defeated the rabbit, having only good stats, but what should he do? If he beats monsters but still has no experience, even realizing that they could help him solve the problem, he is forced to refuse. He apologized to the girls, saying that he is not interested. Was about to leave, but Sui caught up with him and abruptly jumped out in front of him, blocking his way. She looked into his face and asked, doubtfully, maybe he does not know about the Sue Guild. He smiled nervously and told her thought he knew it, and then she asked in confusion why he refused. He thoughtfully rubbed his chin and after a short pause told her that he wanted to try to cope alone. For now he did not feel the need for comrades. She was very surprised and asked if he, by any chance, had a contract with other guilds. He denied it and said again that he would like to hunt alone. And noticing they were silent, he thought that he seemed to have convinced them. He smiled and asked them to let him go. But before that, the girl handed him a business card and said that if he later decided to join the guild, he should contact them, even if he only had skills and nothing more. It would not be a hindrance for them. He took it and left, saying at last that he would think about it, and Sui suggested that they walk to the exit together. That way he could avoid trouble. He still refused and went on, and she threw after him that he was rude, but decided not to dwell on him. Her friend supported her and said that he would definitely regret it later, and she agreed with her and suggested that she quickly get out of there since she was tired of sitting around doing nothing. When MC returned to the village, he realized that he needed to be careful. There were a lot of players here, and they were stronger than normal people. He turned around to check if they had come out, but did not see any familiar faces. After that, he caught a taxi, and when the driver asked where they were going, he sighed heavily and suggested that they set off first. While they were driving, found information about the Blood Fox dungeon on the internet and asked the driver to go there, and he smiled, asking, it seems he just finished a mission in the Horned Rabbit dungeon. He congratulated him on this and said that had driven many players, so he knew the way well. Hunan only smiled awkwardly in response, but he didn't listen to Hishitor any further. Instead, he opened the status window and looked at his level, doubting whether he would be able to clear other dungeons at all. Soon he found himself at his destination. The village had the same atmosphere as the Horned Rabbit dungeon. He walked to the entrance, and the man, before giving him a pass, asked where the other team members were, to which he replied that he would go alone. They let him through without any problems, and he went inside. There was just a group of players who began to surround the fox like in the first dungeon. Hinsung decided to observe at first, and then looked at the guards and saw that they were sleeping. He was happy and used the hide skill. Having found several monsters, he took out his sword and with a confident smile rushed to attack at the same time, checking the system notifications, so he figured out that he could get around points. For one fox, he grabbed the sword with both hands and swung it again, cutting off the enemy's head before stopping, leaving two headless corpses behind him. He noticed that something ahead, a pack of foxes, was slowly approaching him, and he wondered if it was time for him to start a real hunt. Hours later, he had dealt with foxes and finally finished off the Threseving, an incredible achievement. For this, he had single-handedly killed high-level monsters and was therefore awarded the title of Blood Fox Hunter, and this did not surprise him at all, because this was what he was aiming for. After that, he opened the status window. This time his strength increased by 1 point. Apparently everything depends on the title. He raised his sword and turned to face the huge pack of monsters, and meeting the fox's gaze, decided to conduct a small experiment. Hours passed. He thrust his sword into the ground and leaned on it to rest from the hard battle, after which there was a small pile of corpses. Now he had a new achievement of a rare class. He single-handedly killed high-level monsters, and for this he received the title of Blood Fox Slayer. He was glad that the title had gone up in level, and checked the status window. His strength stat had increased by 1 again. The new title increases his strength by 2, and it is also possible to grow to the epic rank. He was glad that everything does not end at the rare rank, and decided to take a little rest. He decided to come here tomorrow, and whilst collecting the crystals dropped by monsters, he found a skill book. This is a passive skill book that makes bones, brain, and skin stronger. The skill has already been learned. He cannot relearn it. He was slightly surprised and thought that if he knew that he could get this, he would not have bought anything. He took a rare passive skill book that reduces magic consumption by %. from the store and then headed to the exit. As soon as he exited the portal, he went to the checkout counter, and the association employee asked him to put the gems and other items he received into the basket one. He put everything away. The man started checking it and was very surprised that he earned so many gems and got a rare skill book there had never been. A book of this level here. Before MC took his things and asked with a smile, "There is nothing strange about this, right?" After that he went to the association to hand over the received items for sale. The association employee told him that he would get for all the gems, and when the books are sold, he will contact him after that. He headed to the exit thinking that, at this rate he can earn about $1 million a day. After all, players are the best returning tough entrants of the dungeon. He sat down on a bench nearby to have a snack, and thought that he should look for a room in the nearest hotel, otherwise it would take too long to get here from home. Having dusted off his hands, he got up and resolutely headed towards the entrance of the dungeon, determined that today he would definitely pump up his rank soon. Another battle began, from which he again emerged victorious. He stopped to calm his breathing, and a system notification appeared in front of him that he had received a heroic achievement. He single-handedly killed monsters and received the title of Blood Fox Slayer. He was very happy about this, and at the same moment, a new notification popped up. He was the first to reach the heroic rank for this. He receives the title. He was slightly surprised by this, and realized that besides him, there were other people who had reached the rare rank, but he was the first to reach the heroic. He scratched his head in confusion. He actually achieved this by accident, but it was still good now. He needed to check his stats. In general, his stats had increased by his title of first to reach heroic rank helped him with this. It increased all his stats by he thought that being the first in something was so cool, and checked what the title of Bloodslayer gave him. It increased his strength by 4, and it was also possible to advance to the legendary rank. He said that this was also incredible, and looked closely at the words about rank increase, and decided to also become the first to receive the legendary rank. But that's enough for today. Since he was very tired, he decided to come back here tomorrow. So days passed. All this time he spent the night in a motel near the dungeon, and had breakfast on the way there. It was time for another hunt. He cut off the heads off monsters, and a system notification popped up because he killed monsters single-handedly. He received the legendary title of Blood Fox Executioner. He is the first to reach the legendary rank, so he is entitled to the corresponding title. Finally he could breathe a sigh of relief. He immediately threw down his sword and sat on the ground tiredly, saying that it was so hard for him. He thought he would die, but it was still possible. Opening the status window, he found a large increase in all stats. The achievement, the first to reach the legendary rank, increases all his characteristics by units. This made him laugh and smile, saying that this is really incredible. After which he checked his title for killing monsters, which increases strength by 8, but unfortunately does not increase in rank anymore. This did not upset him much, but still he could get more benefit from it. He headed to the exit of the dungeon, hid sword in its sheath, and the thought came to his mind that there are still a lot of places to hunt where he can make good money. He returned to the dungeon of the Horned Rabbit and began another clearing of monsters. Having dealt with own monster, he took a deep breath and prepared himself for the attack of the second, which pounced on him from behind. Having plunged the sword into its head, he threw it against the wall and thought that he could handle them with his bare hands. Having looked at his bag, he decided to finish slowly, after which he returned to the motel. A message from the players trading house came to his phone. All the goods registered at the auction were sold. The amount is large, so he can only pick it up in person since he needs to go there anyway, and this is the day when money will flow to him like a river. Decided not to put it off for long, and went to the association. The girl at the reception asked him to check the amount and sign, and he, having taken the check, was very surprised, and his hands trembled with rage. The price of the goods was high, but the tax reduced it almost by half. He held back his anger and thought that this was daylight robbery. But this kind of money was definitely worth it, rather than selling skills for points. He went home thinking that he should hunt even harder in the dungeons. He earned $1 million with just stones in less than days. In total, heckled, earned $1 million a month. The points were accumulating well enough. At this rate, he would be able to buy Thelixir faster than he planned. He came to the bus stop. Looking at his reflection in the glass, he noticed that he had depotted himself clothes since his father got sick. He couldn't afford it like his mother and sister. When the bus pulled up toward the stop, he went inside and smiled, deciding to fix this problem today. It was evening as soon as his mother finished work at the factory, but she still couldn't breathe a sigh of relief, since it was not the end of her working day. She said goodbye to her colleagues and walked forward down the street, and Hinsung appeared behind her. Hearing her son's voice, she turned around in surprise, and he happily waved his hand at her, after which he hugged her and asked when she managed to lose so much weight. She asked why he came, to which he replied that he was here. Tommy Tur. These words caused another smile on her, and she noticed that he had grown so much she did not even notice. He walked on together, and she asked if he had had dinner. He answered her that he had not yet. He wanted to do it with her. For some reason she became upset, and with a serious expression on her face, said his name, after which she put her hand in her pocket and said that she could not go home now. She needed to go to work in the cafeteria. She put the money in his hand and told him to go alone and order some noodles for himself, and that tomorrow morning she would make him a delicious breakfast. He said that she herself had not had dinner yet since they both hadn't eaten. Maybe they should have dinner together. She smiled, guilty, and told him that she could eat at work in the canteen, so he should go home. First he smiled and offered to help her, but she refused, because she knew that he was tired too. He looked at her for a second, thinking about something, and then said seriously that he actually wanted to tell her something, which was why he had come. She turned a questioning look at him, and he said with a smile that he had awakened. She was stunned by this news, and at first didn't believe him, and he showed her his player ID, saying that she could quit her job at the factoriant in the canteen, but she wasn't thrilled because it was a very dangerous job. Seeing her reaction, he hurried to convince her that everything was fine, that safety was his top priority, so she could quit her job. But she answered him seriously that that wasn't right. Players don't make money at the snap of a finger, right? She heard that on the contrary. The first need to spend a lot of money. Choosing his words, he scratched his ear with an awkward smile and told her Fath hit the jackpot. He handed her a check and asked her to look at it. When she saw the amount of billion, she was very surprised, and he told her that while he was hunting, he found a rare quality skill book and sold it with this money. Don't have to worry about his father's hospital bills, and they can pay off their debts, so starting from today, they will live in peace. Unexpectedly for him, his mother shed tears. Probably she was so grateful to him, and at the same time felt guilty because he got a dangerous job so that they could rest more and more, wiping away her tears. She apologized to him, and he excitedly asked her not to say that. What was she apologizing for? If it weren't for them, he would not have been born and raised as healthy as he is now, so let her rest for a while and take good care of his dad. She smiled and thanked him for that, after which they went together to her second job, where she introduced him to her coworkers. They greeted him with smiles, and when he washed all the dishes until they sparkled, they were very surprised, and his mother was proud of him. Soon the work was finished. His mother's coworkers thanked him because, with his help, they finished earlier. He had told them that he should thank them, after which they all said goodbye, and Hansung and his mother headed home. Sister was sitting there. She was only waiting for her mother to arrive, and was very surprised when she saw her brothers. Immediately went up to him and asked in confusion why he came so suddenly. He told her that he had good news. So Leather relaxed. After that, they all sat down on the floor preparing for an important conversation. His sister was confused and expected everything. Not only that he was awakened, this news surprised her, and when he showed her how much he earned, Edge was shocked. She did not believe him, and asked if it was all true. He confirmed it, and told her with a smile not to worry so much, and not to overwork herself. He would take care of everything. Realizing that she would not have to work so much anymore, she burst into tears, and her mother began to calm her down. Even the MC himself almost cried for such a sight, but his sister said that, to be honest, it was very hard for them. Night fell, and Hinson, as the main breadwinner of the family, was put to sleep on a futon, and they lay down on the carpet. In the morning, he went to work, leaving his bank at home, and his mother asked if it would really be comfortable for him to stay here. He confirmed it, and added that there were dungeons all over the country, and she asked what time he would come home. Hesmald, and told her that he would be home when she returned from work. Noticing that he was dressed so lightlish, asked if he would be okay, to which he replied that he could rent equipment at a nearby store. Waving goodbye, he went to work. That same evening he broke his promise and did not return home before his mother arrived. Because of this, she went outside and waited for him, calling him at the same time because he did not answer her calls. She became worried, but not for long. He immediately appeared near the house, running up to her. He apologized to her for being late. There was traffic on the road, so he ran slightly angry. She hit him, saying that he scared her, after which they went to the hospital to see his father, Chi Hyungu. Hanning sat down next to his bed, and his mother put her hand on his shoulder. He looked at him with a sad expression and said that he would definitely recover days past. He got legendary achievement for killing horned rabbits. After reading the notice, he looked at the time on his wristwatch and thought that he had hours, so he could hunt some more. The taxi brought him to another dungeon. Thoth had heard a lot about not seeing a single player at the entrance. He only confirmed the rumors and looked up the information about the dungeon. Vampire bats live inside the recommended level to enter is from 2. They say that bats usually live in flocks, so it will be difficult in the evening without the help of high players. Hunting is impossible, but MC could do it alone. After all, he has a solution for everything. Upon entering the dungeon, I immediately used his stealth skill and walked past 2 guards who were chatting with each other. Finding himself in the center of the dungeon, he saw many frightening red eyes on the ceiling and reached for his sword. Deciding to quickly start the hunt before that, he erected a shield above himself and then deactivated the hide skill, and the bats noticed him, but were in no hurry to attack. To provoke them, he prick-erected his finger until it bled, and then the monsters immediately became active. They all pounced on him from all sides, and he noted that it was like a wave was approaching him, trying to get to him. The bats swarmed the protective dome from all sides, and then he lit a flame and hissed. The bats began to squeak, trying to break through the barrier, and Insing sighed heavily and looked at the flame with the thought that it was not easy to use 2 skills at the same time, although it seems to be a good trick, especially in places filled with small monsters. He focused on the flame, increasing its size, then looked up and shot it into the sky, and then an explosion occurred, burning all the monsters around the barrier, protected him from his own flame, and when everything died down, he turned around and watched the falling ash in surprise. But the fight did not end. Their monsters from all corners of the cave flew into the noise, and he lit the flame in his hand again, preparing to attack. Having waited for the moment. When they got very close, he threw a fireball at them with all his might, and an explosion occurred again. After that, the system notified him that he had single-handedly killed high-level monsters, for which received the title of Vampire Bat Killer, and if he tried hard, he could reach the legendary rank in the remaining time. He wanted to check how many items and stones he had managed to earn, and his attention was caught by one. Red sparks and smoke. It was a sword, but he clearly didn't expect such an item. He brought his hand to it and noticed that the residual magic had coalesced. He took it, and the system informed him that it was a rare vampire's word that restored the user's magic and stamina by absorbing the enemy's blood. He was surprised that there was only 1 item, but it had 2 properties compared to the others. It was quite valuable. Hoping that he would get another similar item, he decided to hunt some more. If he caught a huge number of normal rank monsters at once, an item of rare quality would appear. But what if he caught many rare rank monsters at once a week? Pasidi dealt with the bats, but so far he only received crystals. The red sparks no longer appeared. The sedimentary magic is not collected. Because of this, he was slightly upset. This phenomenon only happened once. After hunting vampire batch, picked up a rare quality vampire bat robe. From the floor, the description said it was thick elastic and didn't tear. He thought with annoyance that it was only rare quality, but still decided to take it and go to another place to earn a title. There a few days passed. He went to a real estate agency with his mother, and she asked worriedly, "Is everything okay? If he spends such a huge amount of money to buy a house at once, then he will have to work hard." He told her with a smile not to worry. He will do it until it becomes a burden. They went inside, and MC told the realtor that they had called each other recently, and he asked, "Are they here for an apartment of square meters?" He asked them to him, and his mother exclaimed in surprise, "Isn't the house too big?" He told her with a smile that everything is okay. Everyone should have a room a week later. They moved into a new house. His sister was delighted with the size of the rooms, and he asked if she saw such a house for the first time. She happily said that she liked everything very much. Then he promised to buy an even bigger house, but she laughed and told him that this was enough for them. Their mother looked at them with a smile, and then they decided to celebrate the move with delicious food. Hansen was melting from the taste of his mother's cooking, and his sister suggested that she treat the neighbors to rice cake tomorrow in honor of the move, to which she agreed with a smile. After listening to them, MC thought that next time they will definitely do it together with Dad. Another working day came this time. He went to the dungeon of blood red rats. Recommended player level is from 2. As soon as he was inside, he was met with fierce looks from Monster Shich. Caught him a little off guard. They didn't wait, and immediately rushed at him, but he quickly reacted and jumped it high. Almost to the ceiling, he pushed off the wall and approached the monsters. And then lunged forward and said that they were faster than he thought, and cut off their heads with his new sword. He decided to get a new rank here too, and lit a fire in his hand, after which he continued the fight. When he came out of the dungeon and showed his loot to the association worker, he was shocked by the amount of stones, and he, thanking him for his hard work, went home. But an unexpected meeting happened. Some girl called him by name, saying that they met again. He recognized her, and his eyes widened in surprise. It turned out to be Suhi. She decided to introduce herself to him formally, and making a slight bow said that she was the leader of the first team of the Su Guild. Does he have some time now? He got nervous. A week ago, when Sui reported everything to the guildmaster Majihun, he slammed his fist on the table in anger, and exclaimed, "Who the hell is this guy?" Poor Suhi didn't know how to answer, and he looked at Hanning's ID, and frowned, then fixed his hair and told her to just look at the amount of stones he sold in order to target them. He needed to kill at least monsters by himself. She guessed that he had some special skill, and he agreed with her. There was a high probability of it, maybe. He had a skill to bypass the level rule, so this show will definitely lure him. Over noticing his smirk, she frowned slightly and agreed with him, after which the guildmaster asked her stood up from his chair and headed to the window, saying that he would send someone with her, but first let her try on her own. Since he knew Hirsch agreed, and he remembered something, he turned to her and asked, with a flash of blue eyes, did the information not reach the other guild members? She flinched in fear from his gaze, and nervously told him that no one except them knew about it, and she would keep an eye on Jisoo. Releasing his pressure, he smiled, and told her to try her best. Currently, MC was confused about how she found him, and he remembered their first meeting. She gave him a business card. Buth didn't say anything to himself. He wondered how she knew his name and how she found out that he would be here. She apologized and wanted to explain, but he didn't let her do it, and asked, did they conduct a secret investigation? Did she even bribe the dungeon staff? She became nervous, and her colleague, realizing that she couldn't handle it, showed up to Hanning and said that he was glad to meet him, and suggested that they talk in a more suitable place. He refused and went home without even looking at him, and then he decided to threaten him by going to his house and waiting for him there. This immediately stopped MC, and he turned around, and the man said with a smile that he was waiting for him. Because he wanted to show politeness, they moved to a cafe, and the man finally introduced himself. His name is Ko Jinzin. He is the head of the first recruitment team in the Su Guild. Jen asked why they were looking for him, and he told him that they were here to make him an offer. He frowned and asked if he thought he wanted to join the guild. Jinzin laughed and said that it was a bit rude of him. He apologizes again for that. However, he doesn't think he should be angry. He uses the same methods as other guilds. It was even very gentle, Hester did, telling him about other guilds, and MC thought that his words did not match his actions. Jensen said that their guild is one of the 3 oldest and largest guilds in Korea. The MC didn't let him finish and asked what his annual salary would be and what the deposit would be. The man smiled and told him that the exact amount would be decided after he joined the guild and revealed his skills, status, and level. He frowned and didn't like it. Jinzin said that he would guarantee a deposit of no less than billion and a salary of billion. He was very surprised and thought it was strange. No matter how highly his abilities were rated, it was a very large amount. Do they want to make him a guild representative? Even if it was some newbie with potential top abilities, there is no guild that would take the risk and invest $1 billion, with the exception of Kim Hana, who is the only buffer in the country. With Harriet, is possible since she is an example of a successful player for the whole world, but he doesn't have any proof. Yet nor does he have the same outstanding skills as she does. Of course, he has the skill of selling and buying, but he can't tell them about it, even when he got his association ID. There was only a rank. An idea came to his mind. What if it was Backos of the gems? He asked the man about it, but he didn't understand what he was talking about. But Suhi reacted friendly. Before that, she was stirring her drink in her glass with a straw, but when this question was asked,